Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ola at Large, Aliyah Stories. This is David Levine, and I took a 2-week break to do some business travel, do some personal travel, and we're back with a new episode. This is a podcast about my becoming an immigrant, which is what the word Ola means, and the process of it, which is called making Aliyah. And Aliyah means to move to Israel, basically. So this has been my journey so far, and I'm really excited about this episode because it begins to chronicle the journey of Dolly, my dog, from London to Israel. So I learned a good lesson from a podcast called On the Town with Matt Maloney, and he pointed out how Mission Impossible Part 1 basically tanked because it had Part 1 in the title. So this is probably going to be a two-parter, but I'm not going to put Part 1 in any of the titles. So this is only going to be part of the story, but it's going to be a good one. So you're going to want to listen. I'm not a stranger to transporting dogs across the world. When I moved from Los Angeles to London, I was accompanied by my two dogs, Ronnie and Lucy, two white boxers. Actually, when I had talked to my boss at the time, oh no, she wasn't my boss. She was going to be my boss, Trisha Wilbur, and said, I was going to be the easiest move they ever had because it was just me, no partner, no children, no tuition to have to pay for. He said the one thing that absolutely was going to be a requirement to move me from LA to London was that Disney pay for the moving of my dogs and basically take care of everything, which they did. So I had some awareness as to what the process was, but not a deep, direct appreciation. When I took Ronnie and Lucy, I had to train them for several weeks to get used to the big gray crates that would transport them across the planet. That took some doing. Both of them had different kinds of personalities that did not exactly lend themselves to being put in a crate for hours at an end. But actually, it turned out they got used to it quite well, and actually they stayed pretty much crate dogs for many of the years once we actually landed in London. When we did, I can tell you when transporting them was definitely at the time one of the most stressful things I ever had to do. And at the time, they did great. I had to ship them out. They got picked up the day before I flew from LA to London. They were kept overnight in this location, and then they were shipped that day. So they were flying on a different plane than I was. And I remember when they got back, Lucy gets out of the van that had transported them all the way from the airport. They did great on the flight. Lucy gets out of the van. She pops out of the van. She runs past me, runs into the house that we were renting temporarily in Acton, and she just bounds, through the front little garden and into the house and running around. Ronnie gets out, and he looks at me like, Dad, where the beep have you been? Where did the sun go? And where the F have you been? So he did not do as well. He did, the journey was fine, but it took him a day or two to snap back. So I do know that, it could be challenging and stressful for the dogs, and certainly stressful for the human beings involved. So with Dolly, I had some time to prepare. I had started making the decision to move in around December, January. I really started getting going, and looked up all the information. And it's quite it could be quite complicated to import a pet into Israel. Um, there's an application form for a license, which you've got to do at least 2 weeks before, and you have to pay a fee. And then, so that's got to be all filled out. And then you've got to go to a vet in your market and get a health certificate that is specified by Israel. And a lot of this is on the government website, which also, not so helpfully, is not translated into any other language yet. So thank God for Google Translate. I feel like I could do a whole podcast on the virtues of different translation apps and what works better, what doesn't. I've landed on Google Translate for various reasons. So you've got to get a vet certificate that the dog's in good health, including potentially blood test results and rabies vaccinations, and then you've got to work out to actually get a ticket or figure out how to get a dog onto a plane and to the country. The fortunate thing about being in the UK is apparently, being a big old island, we don't have rabies in the UK. So there's this whole complication in terms of when you have to get a rabies vaccination and when you have to get the test, and it's all very specific in terms of the timing. And we got to dodge that bullet completely, because if you live in certain countries, the UK being one of them, you don't have to worry about it because you don't got rabies in your country. So that was one easy tick. That was good. I mean, and not a tick, because that's probably not the best word to use when you're talking about a dog. Anyhow, so that was good. That was easy. One of the other requirements is to have a microchip in your pet. I got Dolly as a rescue from Battersea Dogs and Cats, so she came with a microchip, which was great. I looked up the records and actually remembered that Dolly was originally named Edna when I got her. I was getting her, and at the time, I was trying to think of a name. And when you change a dog's name, you want to do something similar to what it already has, so that it's not difficult for the dog to comprehend the new name. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go with something with 2 syllables with a D in the middle, and I thought Sadie, after my grandmother. So I was talking with my sister about it, and she said, absolutely no way. Why? Because Grandma Sadie didn't like dogs. That's why she never was wanted to be called Nana, because of Nana from Peter Pan. So you cannot name your dog after Grandma Sadie. Okay, so give me some suggestions, I asked. Right off the cuff, she suggests Dolly, which I should have thought of myself, because that was one of the main characters of 101 Dalmatian Street, which we were producing at Disney. And it worked. And so anyway, so I found the document with Edna Dolly's name on it, but the microchip needs to be a certain megahertz and a certain frequency, and of course, none of that information is on there. So I needed to go to the vet anyway, and I was hopeful that the microchip was going to be of the right frequency. Uh, and so when it finally came time for us to go to the vet to get the health requirement, it turned out that the chip is the right kind. So that was good. So check, another check on the list, and I got the vet form all filled out. Terrific. Check. I called up El Al, which was the carrier I was using. Given there are limitations in terms of airlines that can take dogs in the first instance. Many airlines just don't take pets, don't take dogs. British Airways, for example, doesn't allow pets at all, apparently. And you have a limitation now in terms of who's actually flying to Israel. So your choices are narrow to begin with. Thankfully, El Al, not surprisingly, considering they have to cater to so many people who are moving to Israel, as an example, they take dogs, which was great. And I go online and I call them and I ask, okay, how do I take care of the dog? Do I have to buy her a separate ticket? What's can she go business class? Because she's very classy, my dog. British dog she is. And so they say, no, you just have to pay, I think it was like $400. and she gets a ticket, and you just bring her to the airport with in a crate, and you're good to go. I said, okay, well that sounds pretty simple. So I was asking different companies to help, just like I had done at Disney, or Disney had done for me. And I was getting these quotes of thousands of pounds back to manage the whole process. And since I had called El Al and they said, oh, it's just $400, I figured, why is that so expensive? Should I just, I'll just do it myself with the $400? That should have been my first clue that something was amiss. It was the first of several blunders that I would make in this process. The next blunder I would make involved ordering crates. I ordered the completely wrong kind of crate. I ordered a soft crate, which you can't use. You need a hard crate, and you need it needs to be certified to be able to fly on airlines. So that was a good piece of knowledge I figured out. I also was being a little laissez-faire about measuring the dog and measuring the crates. Even after 10 years of dealing with centimeters and such, I got it wrong twice and had to return the crates. One of the crates, they didn't even want to take it back. It was sitting in my house. I had to resell it on online. Finally got the right size crate, but the time I got the crate, it was 2 days before we were traveling. So I was a little nervous because she'd never been in a crate before. She had very little time to acclimate to the crate. The other thing that winds up transpiring right before the flight was that I looked again at the details on the El Al website, and there's some fine print, sort of fine print, that basically lays everything out in terms of the instructions. But then it says, uh, in certain markets, the dog has to travel as cargo and needs a bill of lading. And I'm like, what is that? What do I have to do? And so there's a phone number to lead to another phone number. You have to call El Al Cargo, and El Al Cargo puts you in contact with a pet animal shipping specialist that they speak to you about it. Turns out I have to get a whole bill of lading. I have to get uh, a whole additional set of costs involved. So the $400 or 400 pounds was just the beginning. I thought I was getting off really easy. And what was interesting is that there were some services that offered to do it for me, like I had done with Disney. And they were like a couple £1,000. And I figured, well, why am I paying them a couple £1,000 when I could just do it myself for 400 pounds? Okay, well, it turned out that the shipping costs from the shippers were a couple £1,000. And so at the end of the day, what I really should have done in the beginning was use one of these services, because net it would have basically cost the same. And certainly would have been a little less heartache running around at the last minute, making sure that all the documents were in the hands of the shipping company and that it was all going to work out. So this is literally 3 or 4 days before the flight, running around like a chicken without a head, trying to figure out how to get this done, calling everyone involved, making so because we were landing at an hour outside of the typical airport hours, I had to pay additional to have a special guy be there to be able to accept the dog in the overnight hours, because that's when we were landing. So it was, and I had to contact not only the folks in the UK that were shipping the dog, but also the guys in Israel, and I had to pay them a whole bunch of money too. All these different kind of fees. So what started out as a 400-pound ticket turned into multiple thousands of pounds to bring the dog over. and dealing with people in Israel, people dealing with people in the UK. And finally we get to the day, and I have so much luggage and so much stuff along with Dolly in this big crate, and I needed some help. I asked my friend Oshri to help me come to the airport. Oshri was a really good friend and came with me to the airport with the dog. Um, it was difficult to figure out where in the airport because it was a different cargo section. So no place that in all my trips to Heathrow never would have gone there before. And we finally get to where we need to be, and it turned out that we needed to drop Dolly off a couple out like 2 hours before the typical boarding time, and so she was going to be in the crate, minimum 9-10 hours, assuming we even took off on time, which that was starting to give me some anxiety. Of course, she after 2 days was able to acclimate to the crate, so good on her. Dolly is a super super chill dog. She doesn't really bark a lot unless there's someone at the door, and otherwise she's pretty chill. She sleeps most of the time. We get to the cargo place, able to drop her off. Once you drop her off and she goes into the crate, that's it. They don't open the crate until the other side. You put some padding down on the bottom of the crate, because usually when animals are uh, put in a crate for so long, especially in stressful conditions, they'll very typically pee or poop. Certainly Ronnie and Lucy, when I sent them over, I didn't get any of their bedding back. They had soiled their bedding when they did their very long trip. I think that flight was 11 hours or something. So drop off the dog at the cargo place, say goodbye to Oshri. Thank you very much. That was really nice. And I go to the El Al desk to check in. So I get to the El Al desk and I check in, and they're all confused. And they said, "Well, where's your dog?" I said, "What do you mean, where's my dog? My dog is at the cargo place." "But you could have just brought the dog here. You could have brought the dog on a lead, and then we would have packed her up in the box and sent her off." Like, what? What are you talking about? I just spent an additional thousands of pounds. And my dog is now, like, more importantly, going to be in that crate for an additional 3 or 4 hours. And this whole time I could have brought her here and just checked her in right here. They said, "Yeah, you can't be right. This can't be right." "No, no, no, no. Let me check." And so this woman goes off to the side and she starts calling someone in the head office. She comes back and she says, "No, I'm right. That's all you needed to do." As you could probably imagine, I was livid. I thought, and I even said, "I've spent so much time running around. I've spent thousands of pounds. And more importantly, my dog is, uh, as you can imagine, I was livid. I was just livid. I had spent all this extra money. Uh, the dog Dolly was going to be in the crate for the extra hours, totally unnecessarily. So I got her name. I tried to get everyone's names as possible that I could. I get to the plane, and of course, every 5 minutes, I'm asking, "Do they know that Dolly's in the plane?" "Yes." Is the power and the air conditioning and the heat in the cargo room on?" "Yes." "The pilot knows?" "Yes." So everyone on the staff was very nice, very reassuring. Told me that that she was fine, which that was good. And of course, I have to say, I was stewing in my juice for 5 hours. I wrote an email that was 2 pages long, ready to shoot it out. And as soon as I landed, and I think this is a good time to break. there's obviously more to the story in terms of both the situation as well as what happens when we land and what happens when you get there. I will have my veterinarian, Nama, who has been amazing, my local vet, who's been amazing, who's going to talk about what it's like having a pet in Israel and what you need to do once you're on the ground. So stay tuned for the next part of Dolly making Aliyah. Every episode, we have a new Israeli word for the podcast. So we're going to go simple this time and make it fitting for the theme. The word is shev, which means sit. So I've been trying to teach Dolly Hebrew commands, and shev, or probably should be shevet or shift. I don't know. I'm just saying shev, to sit. And she's not really listening to me in Hebrew because she doesn't really listen to me in English anyway. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe on all the big platforms. Please share with your friends. And if you have any questions or any thoughts, please shoot me a note. I started an Instagram account. It's just simply Aliyah_stories, which will be the Instagram account to go along with this podcast. So please give that a follow. I just launched it, so I'm starting to populate it with pictures from my journey so far, and I would love to see you there and see you on the next episode. Thank you.